The monument stood tall, a symbol of both pain and hope. Visitors from all corners of the galaxy came to see it, their footsteps echoing softly against the polished surface. For many, it was a place to reflect, to remember loved ones lost, battles fought, and sacrifices made. Ethan Miller often visited, standing quietly before the towering structure as if searching for answers in its intricate carvings. Claire joined him sometimes, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. Together, they found comfort in the shared silence. Lily Carter had poured her heart into designing the monument. Her sketches had become reality, a testament to resilience and unity. People admired her work, but she remained humble, focusing instead on what it represented. "It's not about me," she told anyone who praised her. "It's about everyone who lived through the war, and everyone still working to make things better." Daniel continued rebuilding Delta 7, watching with pride as the colony thrived once more. The scars of the past were still there, empty spaces where homes once stood, reminders of lives cut short. But so too were signs of renewal. Children played in the streets, laughter filling the air. Families gathered for meals, sharing stories of survival and hope. Daniel knew the pain would never fully fade, but he also knew that healing was possible. Across the galaxy, humanity's role shifted dramatically. Once seen as dreamers and explorers, humans were now respected and feared for their strength. Other species watched closely, unsure whether humanity's rise marked the beginning of a new era or the seeds of future conflict. Leaders worked tirelessly to ensure the former, promoting cooperation and understanding. Diplomats traveled between planets, forging alliances and addressing grievances. Progress was slow, but steady. Ethan and Claire often spoke about this changing dynamic. Sitting in their small apartment, they debated the challenges ahead. "We have power now," Ethan said one evening, staring at the stars outside their window. "But power can corrupt if we're not careful." Claire nodded, agreeing with him. "That's why we have to keep remembering why we fought," she replied. "Not for control, but for peace." Natalie Brooks remained a quiet but vital part of the recovery effort. Though some still doubted her loyalty, most recognized her contributions and welcomed her help. She spent her days assisting struggling communities, ensuring no one was left behind. Her presence reminded others that trust could be rebuilt, even after betrayal. The Zaxxeri, however, remained a shadow over the galaxy. While their empire had fallen, whispers of rebellion persisted. Underground groups plotted revenge, vowing to reclaim their dominance. These threats kept leaders vigilant, knowing that peace required constant effort. Yet, amid the uncertainty, there was also determination. Humanity and its allies refused to let fear dictate their future. As years turned into decades, the war became a chapter in history books rather than a fresh wound. Schools taught lessons about courage, sacrifice, and the importance of standing together. Students learned about Delta 7, Epsilon 9, and the countless lives touched by the conflict. They studied humanity's breaking point, the moment when patience gave way to action, and the legacy it left behind. One day, while walking through the monument grounds, Ethan stopped at an inscription etched into the vase. *, "No species will ever forget the day humanity finally snapped." He read the words aloud, his voice soft but steady. Claire stood beside him, smiling faintly. "It's a reminder," she said, "of how far we've come, and how much farther we have to go." For Ethan, those words carried weight. They weren't just about the past. They were about the future. Humanity had proven it could rise to the occasion, fighting for justice and protecting the innocent. But true peace required more than strength. It demanded empathy, forgiveness, and a willingness to learn from mistakes. As the sun set, casting golden light over the monument, Ethan felt a sense of calm. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he believed in the galaxy's potential. Perhaps one day, the scars of war would fade entirely, replaced by a brighter, more united future. Until then, the monument stood as a beacon, a reminder of what had been endured and what still lay within reach. Years passed, and the galaxy slowly began to heal. The scars of war were still visible. Ruined cities, empty colonies, and families forever changed. But life found a way to move forward. On Earth, people returned to their routines, though they carried the weight of what had happened. Ethan Miller worked as a mechanic again, fixing hovercars in his small shop. It was peaceful work, a sharp contrast to the chaos of battle. Yet, he often found himself staring out the window, lost in thought. Claire noticed these moments but didn't press him. She knew some wounds took longer to heal than others. Daniel Carter stayed on Delta 7, dedicating his life to rebuilding the colony. He became a leader among the settlers, guiding them through challenges and celebrating small victories. Lily grew into a talented artist, her sketches now displayed in galleries across the galaxy. Her work captured both the pain of loss and the hope of renewal, resonating with those who had lived through the war. Father and daughter found comfort in each other, building a new life together among the stars. Natalie Brooks eventually cleared her name, thanks to Ethan's investigation. Though the accusations had damaged her reputation, she chose to stay active in rebuilding efforts. She traveled between planets, helping communities recover and fostering trust between species. Many came to admire her resilience, seeing her not as an outsider, but as someone who had fought for the greater good. Still, she kept a quiet distance, wary of drawing too much attention to herself. The Zaxxari Federation crumbled after its defeat, leaving behind a fractured society. Some former citizens sought redemption, joining efforts to rebuild and make amends. Others retreated into isolation, vowing to rise again. Rumors of underground movements persisted, fueling fears that peace might not last. But for now, the galaxy remained calm, holding its breath as it waited to see what would come next. On Earth, Claire continued her advocacy work, focusing on education and unity. She believed that understanding was the key to preventing future conflicts. Schools began teaching lessons about the war, emphasizing humanity's role in protecting oppressed species. Students learned about courage, sacrifice, and the importance of standing up against injustice. Claire hoped these stories would inspire future generations to build a better world. Ethan occasionally joined her at events, sharing his experiences with wide-eyed listeners. At first, he struggled to talk about the war, but over time, he realized his story could help others. "We made mistakes," he admitted during one speech. "But we also showed that even the smallest acts of bravery can change the galaxy." His words earned applause, but more importantly, they sparked conversations about how to move forward. Despite progress, tensions lingered. Humanity's newfound power made some species uneasy, worried that history might repeat itself. Leaders debated how to balance strength with compassion, ensuring that no one group dominated the galaxy. It was a delicate process, requiring patience and compromise. Ethan and Claire often discussed these issues late at night, imagining what kind of future they wanted to leave behind. One day, Lily approached them with an idea. "We should create a monument," she said excitedly. "Something to honor everyone affected by the war, not just humans, but all species." Her passion convinced them, and soon, plans were underway. Artists, engineers, and volunteers from across the galaxy came together to design and build the project. The result was breathtaking. A towering structure etched with images of unity, sacrifice, and hope. As visitors gathered around the completed monument, one phrase echoed endlessly, a reminder of humanity's breaking point and the legacy it left behind. No species will ever forget the day humanity finally snapped. For better or worse, the galaxy had been forever changed, and though the road ahead remained uncertain, there was a shared determination to learn from the past and strive for a brighter future. The accusations against Natalie Brooks cast a shadow over the fragile peace. Rumors spread quickly, fueled by fear and suspicion. Some whispered that her father's ties to the Zaxxari made her untrustworthy, while others argued she had proven her loyalty time and again. Claire Miller refused to listen to the gossip, standing firmly by Natalie's side. She saved lives, Claire told anyone who would listen. Without her, we wouldn't have made it this far. But even her strong words couldn't silence the doubts entirely. Natalie tried to keep working, organizing supply shipments and helping rebuild damaged colonies. Yet the weight of the accusations wore on her. She began withdrawing from others, avoiding conversations and keeping to herself. One evening, as she sorted crates in a makeshift warehouse, Ethan approached her. "You don't have to face this alone," he said gently. Natalie looked up, her eyes filled with frustration and sadness. "It doesn't matter what I do," she replied. "Some people will always see me as the enemy." Ethan didn't know how to respond. He wanted to believe in Natalie. It was clear she cared about the cause. But he also understood why trust was so hard to come by after everything they'd been through. War changed people, twisting their thoughts and making them question even those closest to them. Still, he promised to help however he could. Together, they decided to investigate the leak themselves, hoping to uncover the truth and clear Natalie's name. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter worked tirelessly on Delta 7, determined to restore the colony his family had once called home. Every day, he woke before sunrise, overseeing construction teams and helping families settle back into their rebuilt homes. It was exhausting work, but it gave him purpose. Lily stayed by his side, sketching scenes of the colony's revival. Her drawings were different now, brighter, filled with hope instead of despair. Seeing her smile again gave Daniel strength, even when the nights were long and sleep elusive. Back on Earth, Claire continued rallying support for rebuilding efforts. She traveled across the planet, speaking at rallies and meeting with leaders to secure funding and resources. Her speeches inspired many, reminding them of the sacrifices made during the war and the importance of unity moving forward. But not everyone agreed. Peace activists argued that humanity's actions during the war mirrored the cruelty of the Zaxari, warning that such behavior would only lead to more conflict. Claire listened to their concerns but remained steadfast. "We fought to protect innocent lives," she said. "That's something worth remembering." As weeks passed, Ethan and Natalie uncovered troubling evidence about the leak. The information pointed to someone within the Galactic Liberation Force's command structure, a trusted officer named Commander Grayson. Known for his tactical brilliance, Grayson had played a key role in several major victories. No one suspected him capable of betrayal, which made the revelation all the more shocking. When confronted, Grayson admitted his guilt, but claimed he had acted out of desperation. "I thought negotiating with the Zaxari would save lives," he confessed. "But I was wrong." His apology fell flat among those who had suffered because of his actions. Arrested pending trial, Grayson became a symbol of the challenges ahead. Rebuilding trust wouldn't be easy. Despite these setbacks, progress continued. Colonies slowly came back to life, and species that had once feared humanity began reaching out again. The Quarin sent engineers to assist with reconstruction, while the Varnock offered protection for vulnerable settlements. Even former Zaxari citizens expressed interest in joining the effort, eager to distance themselves from their empire's violent past. One night, Ethan sat outside Claire's apartment, staring at the stars. The galaxy felt different now, not just because of the war, but because of everything humanity had endured. They had snapped under pressure, rising to defend themselves and others. But victory wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a new chapter. Claire joined him, handing him a cup of tea. "Do you think we'll ever really find peace?" she asked softly. Ethan took a sip, considering the question. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I think we owe it to everyone who fought, and everyone who died, to try." Claire nodded, leaning against him. Above them, the stars twinkled, silent witnesses to humanity's journey through chaos and courage. The war was over, but the galaxy wasn't celebrating. The victory against the Zaxari Federation had come at a heavy cost. Cities lay in ruins, both on Earth and across other planets. Families mourned their dead, and survivors struggled to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. For Ethan Miller, returning home felt strange. The streets of New Chicago were quieter than he remembered, as if the weight of everything that had happened hung in the air. Claire greeted him with tears in her eyes, holding him tightly as if afraid he might disappear again. They didn't talk much at first. There was too much to say, and neither knew where to start. Instead, they sat together in silence, finding comfort in each other's presence. But even in those quiet moments, Ethan couldn't shake the memories of the war. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of battles, heard the screams of the dying, and felt the heat of explosions. He tried to push it aside, telling himself it was over now, but the scars ran deep. Daniel Carter returned to Earth shortly after Ethan. His reunion with Lily was bittersweet. She hugged him fiercely, crying into his shoulder, but there was a distance between them that hadn't been there before. Delta 7 had changed them both. Daniel wanted to believe things would get better, but he knew some wounds never fully healed. Still, he threw himself into rebuilding efforts, working long hours to restore what had been lost. It gave him purpose, something to focus on besides the guilt and grief. Back on the Zaxari homeworld, tensions simmered beneath the surface. While the official leadership had surrendered, not everyone accepted defeat. Rumors spread of underground movements forming, vowing to continue the fight. Some Zaxari citizens resented humanity for the destruction wrought on their planet, while others quietly admitted that change was necessary. The galaxy was divided, unsure whether peace would last, or if this was just a pause before the next conflict. The Galactic Liberation Force disbanded soon after the war ended, its mission complete. Soldiers returned to their homes, carrying stories of heroism and loss. But cracks began to show within the coalition. Allies who had once stood side by side started questioning humanity's growing influence. The Corin withdrew their support, citing concerns about human aggression. Even the Varnak, loyal until the end, expressed doubts about how power would be balanced moving forward. Ethan noticed the shift during debriefings and meetings. Leaders argued over what should happen next. Some called for stricter controls on the Zaxari, while others pushed for forgiveness and reconciliation. Ethan found himself caught in the middle, unsure which path was right. He had fought so hard for victory, but now he wondered if winning had only created new problems. Claire tried to stay optimistic, focusing on rebuilding rather than dwelling on the past. She worked with Natalie Brooks to organize aid shipments for devastated colonies. Together, they traveled to places like Delta 7, helping families recover and rebuild. Claire saw hope in the small victories, a child smiling despite everything, a family moving back into their repaired home. But she also saw anger and distrust. Not everyone believed humanity's intentions were pure. One evening, while sorting supplies, Natalie approached Claire hesitantly. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice low. Claire frowned, sensing the seriousness in her tone. Natalie confessed that she had uncovered evidence of betrayal within the GLF ranks. A high-ranking officer had leaked classified information to the Zaxari during the final assault, nearly costing them the war. Though she didn't name names, suspicion fell on Natalie herself due to her mixed heritage. Claire refused to believe it. "You've done nothing but help us," she said firmly. "If anyone questions your loyalty, they'll have to go through me first." Natalie looked relieved but troubled, knowing the accusations wouldn't stop easily. As days turned into weeks, the galaxy remained uneasy. Humanity had proven it could stand up to its enemies, but at what cost? Trust was fragile, alliances strained, and old wounds slow to heal. Ethan often stared at the stars, wondering if the galaxy would ever truly find peace, or if the cycle of conflict would simply begin anew. With the Zaxari planetary shield down, the fleet launched its full assault. Ships descended from orbit, their weapons blazing as they targeted key locations across the capital city. Explosions rocked the skyline, sending plumes of smoke into the air. The once mighty Zaxari homeworld, a symbol of power and control, now trembled under the weight of humanity's fury. Ethan Miller crouched behind cover, his heart racing as enemy fire zipped past him. The ground team had split up to secure different parts of the city, but the resistance was fiercer than anyone expected. Zaxxari soldiers fought with desperation, knowing that losing this battle meant the end of their empire. Ethan glanced at Daniel Carter, who was reloading his weapon nearby. Sweat dripped down Daniel's face, but his hands were steady. They exchanged a quick nod, silently agreeing to keep moving forward. The streets were chaos. Burning buildings, shattered vehicles, and the constant roar of explosions. Civilians ran for safety, some clutching children or belongings. Ethan felt a pang of guilt seeing them, but he reminded himself why they were here. The Zaxxari had shown no mercy to human colonies like Delta 7. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. Captain Ryan Dawson led the charge toward the Central Command Center, where the Zaxxari leadership was believed to be hiding. Intelligence suggested that taking out the High Command would force a surrender, but getting there wouldn't be easy. Every step was met with heavy resistance, and the team's numbers dwindled as casualties mounted. Still, they pressed on, driven by the hope of ending the war. Back on Earth, Claire Miller followed the news anxiously. Reports poured in from the front lines, painting a picture of both triumph and devastation. She tried to focus on her work, organizing supplies and coordinating relief efforts for wounded soldiers. But her mind kept drifting to Ethan. Was he safe? Had he made it through the fighting? She clung to the belief that he was strong enough to survive, just as she always had. Natalie Brooks noticed Claire's worry and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "He's tough," Natalie said softly, "and he's not alone. He has people watching his back." Claire managed a weak smile, grateful for the support. Natalie had become more than just a colleague. She was a friend, someone Claire could lean on during these difficult times. Meanwhile, aboard one of the orbiting ships, Admiral Marcus Hale oversaw the space battle. Lasers crisscrossed the void as GLF vessels clashed with Zaxxari warships. The tide seemed to be turning in their favor, but the cost was high. Several human ships had been destroyed, and countless lives lost. Hale clenched his fists, knowing that every decision he made carried weight. Victory was close, but it came at a price no one could fully measure. On the ground, Ethan and Daniel finally reached the command center. The building was heavily fortified, with guards stationed at every entrance. Using grenades and precise teamwork, the team managed to breach the doors. Inside, they found themselves in a maze of corridors and locked rooms. It took time, but they eventually located the main chamber. What they saw inside shocked them. Admiral Vorek, the ruthless leader of the Zaxxari forces, stood waiting. His expression was calm, almost amused, as if he had expected them. "You think destroying this place will change anything," he sneered. "Even if you win today, your kind will regret what you've unleashed." Before anyone could respond, Captain Dawson stepped forward, his weapon aimed directly at Vorek. "It's over," he said firmly. A tense standoff followed, but in the end, Vorek surrendered. The Zaxxari leadership was captured, and the remaining forces began to retreat. As the dust settled, Ethan sank to his knees, exhausted but relieved. They had done it. They had struck a blow that might finally bring peace. But as he looked around at the destruction, he couldn't help but wonder, at what cost? The galaxy had changed forever, and there was no going back. Far away, Claire watched footage of the victory celebrations. People cheered and hugged, waving flags and chanting slogans. Yet, amidst the joy, she felt a deep sadness. War left scars that never fully healed, and though the fighting was over, the real challenge, rebuilding trust and unity, was only beginning. The GLF's next mission was its most ambitious yet, a direct strike on the Zaxxari homeworld. It was a risky plan, but the leaders of the Galactic Liberation Force believed it was the only way to end the war quickly. The Zaxxari had always fought from a position of strength, confident that no one would dare attack their home. Humanity and its allies aimed to shatter that confidence. Ethan Miller stood in the briefing room, listening intently as Captain Ryan Dawson outlined the strategy. "This isn't just another battle," Dawson said, his voice firm. "If we succeed, we cripple the Zaxxeri for good. But if we fail—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood the stakes. This wasn't just about winning. It was about survival. Daniel Carter shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Since the last mission, he'd been struggling with doubts. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of the outpost explosion. The fire, the screams, the chaos. Still, he knew there was no turning back. If they didn't stop the Zaxxeri now, more colonies would suffer the same fate as Delta 7. His daughter, Lily, deserved a future free from fear. That thought kept him going. On Earth, Claire Miller worked tirelessly to prepare for the mission. Supplies were gathered, ships were loaded, and volunteers stepped forward to help in any way they could. Natalie Brooks played a key role, organizing logistics and ensuring that every detail was covered. Despite whispers about her father's past ties to the Zaxxeri, she proved herself indispensable. Claire trusted her completely, knowing that Natalie's skills were crucial to the war effort. As the fleet prepared to launch, tensions ran high. Soldiers double-checked their gear, wrote letters to loved ones, and tried to distract themselves from the uncertainty ahead. Ethan found himself sitting alone in the ship's mess hall, staring at a photo of Claire. He wondered what she was doing at that moment. Was she thinking about him? He hoped so. When the fleet finally entered Zaxxeri space, the atmosphere aboard the ships was electric. Dozens of vessels, each carrying soldiers and supplies, moved silently through the void. The Zaxxeri homeworld loomed ahead, its surface dotted with sprawling cities and massive defense systems. It was clear that this wouldn't be an easy fight. Ethan and Daniel were part of the ground team tasked with disabling the planet's shield generator. Without the shield, the fleet could bombard the capital city, forcing the Zaxxeri leadership to surrender. The mission required precision and speed, qualities both men had proven they possessed. As their shuttle descended onto the planet's surface, anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky. The pilot dodged blasts, weaving through the chaos until they reached their drop point. When the hatch opened, Ethan and Daniel jumped out, landing hard on rocky terrain. Around them, other teams fanned out, heading toward their assigned targets. The journey to the shield generator was grueling. Enemy patrols roamed the area, forcing the team to move cautiously. At one point, Daniel spotted a group of Zaxxeri soldiers guarding a checkpoint. He signaled to Ethan, and together they devised a plan. Using smoke grenades and diversion tactics, they managed to take out the guards without alerting others nearby. Finally, after hours of careful maneuvering, they reached the generator. Daniel set to work planting explosives while Ethan kept watch, his weapon ready. The seconds felt like hours as they waited for the charges to arm. Just as Daniel gave the signal to retreat, alarms blared, and Zaxxeri reinforcements arrived. "Go!" Ethan shouted, firing at the approaching enemies. Daniel hesitated for a moment, then sprinted toward the extraction point. Explosions rocked the ground behind them as the generator collapsed, sending waves of energy rippling across the sky. Back on the ship, Captain Dawson watched as the planetary shield flickered and died. "Good work," he said over the comms, but there was no time to celebrate. The real battle was just beginning. The victory at the Zaxxeri outpost sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of the successful attack spread quickly, reaching even the farthest corners of human-controlled space. For the first time, the Zaxxeri Federation seemed vulnerable. Their reputation as an unstoppable force began to crack, and other oppressed species took notice. The Galactic Liberation Force, GLF, was no longer just a coalition of humans and a few allies. It had become a symbol of hope for anyone who had suffered under Zaxxeri rule. Ethan Miller stood on the deck of the GLF flagship, staring out at the stars. He felt a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, he was proud of what they had accomplished. The outpost's destruction proved that humanity could fight back. But on the other hand, he couldn't shake the images of the battle, the explosions, the screams, the lives lost. War wasn't glamorous, no matter how much people tried to make it seem that way. It was messy, painful, and costly. Claire Miller, back on Earth, saw the effects of the victory firsthand. People were energized, their spirits lifted by the news. Donations poured in from all over the planet. Food, medical supplies, even old ships that could be repurposed for the war effort. She worked tirelessly to organize everything, her days filled with meetings and phone calls. Natalie Brooks stayed by her side, helping manage the growing operation. Together, they became a powerhouse duo, ensuring the troops had what they needed to keep fighting. But not everyone celebrated. Some questioned whether the GLF's actions were justified. Peace activists argued that violence would only lead to more violence. "If we fight like them," one protester shouted during a rally, "aren't we becoming just like them?" Claire heard these voices, but she didn't agree. The Zaxxeri had shown no mercy, no regard for life. If humanity wanted to survive, it had to stand its ground. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter struggled with his own doubts. After the battle, he found himself replaying every moment in his mind. Had he done enough? Could he have saved more of his teammates? The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, making it hard to sleep. Captain Ryan Dawson noticed and pulled him aside one evening. "You're not alone in this," Dawson said gently. "We all carry scars. What matters is how we move forward." As the GLF planned its next move, something unexpected happened. Species that had once avoided conflict began reaching out, offering help. The Korin sent advanced technology that could shield ships from enemy fire. The Varnok dispatched warriors trained in close combat, their strength unmatched. Even the Caliph, known for their secrecy, shared intelligence about Zaxxeri supply lines and weak points. It was as if the entire galaxy had awakened, realizing that humanity's fight was their fight too. Ethan marveled at the unity forming around him. Training sessions now included soldiers from all walks of life, each bringing unique skills to the table. He formed a close bond with a Korin engineer named Sila, whose calm demeanor masked a sharp tactical mind. Together, they devised strategies that blended human ingenuity with alien expertise. For the first time, Ethan felt like they might actually have a chance. Back on Earth, Lily Carter watched the news with growing curiosity. Though she still didn't speak much, her eyes lit up whenever she saw reports about the GLF. One day, while staying with relatives, she discovered an old computer. Using skills she learned from tinkering with gadgets, she hacked into classified databases. At first, it was just curiosity. But then she stumbled upon something shocking. Hidden files revealed that the Zaxxeri had been conducting secret experiments on captured prisoners, subjecting them to horrific conditions. Her hands trembled as she copied the data onto a portable drive. When she showed the information to Claire, both women knew it was big. The revelation sparked outrage across the galaxy. Protests erupted on multiple planets, and even some Zaxxeri colonies began questioning their leaders. The tide of public opinion shifted dramatically, turning even more species against the Federation. Humanity's cause gained legitimacy, and support for the GLF surged. Still, doubts lingered. Was this unity strong enough to withstand the challenges ahead? Could they truly defeat the Zaxxeri, or were they simply delaying the inevitable? As Ethan gazed at the stars, he reminded himself of why they were fighting: for Delta 7, for Epsilon 9, and for every innocent life caught in the crossfire. Whatever happened next, they couldn't afford to give up now. The war effort grew stronger with each passing day. Across the galaxy, humanity and its newfound allies worked tirelessly to prepare for the fight ahead. Ethan Miller trained alongside soldiers from different species, learning how to use weapons and tactics he had never imagined before. The Galactic Liberation Force, GLF, was a mix of humans, Korin, Varnok, and others, all united by a shared goal: to stop the Zaxxeri Federation. Despite their differences, they found common ground in their determination to protect the innocent. Daniel Carter also joined the GLF, leaving Lily in the care of relatives on Earth. It wasn't an easy decision, but he knew he couldn't stay idle while the Zaxxeri still posed a threat. Every time he thought about Delta 7, his heart burned with anger and grief. He channeled those feelings into his training, becoming one of the most skilled fighters in his unit. His superiors noticed his dedication and assigned him to a special operations team led by Captain Ryan Dawson, a seasoned veteran known for his calm under pressure. Back on Earth, Claire Miller threw herself into her work. She organized rallies, collected supplies, and coordinated efforts to support the troops. Her speeches inspired countless people to contribute in whatever way they could. One evening, as she packed boxes of medical supplies, a young woman approached her. "My name is Natalie Brooks," she said. "I want to help." Claire smiled, grateful for the offer. Natalie quickly proved herself invaluable, using her knowledge of logistics to streamline operations. Though some whispered about her mixed heritage, her mother was human, but her father was a former Zaxxeri collaborator. Claire trusted her completely. As the GLF prepared for its first major offensive, tensions ran high. The target was a Zaxxeri outpost near the edge of human-controlled space. Intelligence reports suggested it was a key hub for coordinating attacks on colonies like Delta 7. Destroying it would send a clear message. Humanity was no longer afraid to strike back. The night before the mission, Ethan sat alone in the barracks, staring at a photo of Claire. He wondered if he'd ever see her again. Around him, other soldiers wrote letters or talked quietly, trying to distract themselves from the uncertainty ahead. Daniel walked in, his face pale but determined. "You ready?" Ethan asked. Daniel nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." The next morning, the fleet launched. Dozens of ships, big and small, soared into space, their engines glowing against the darkness. Ethan and Daniel were part of the ground team tasked with infiltrating the outpost. As their shuttle descended onto the planet's surface, the air buzzed with anticipation. This was it, the moment they had trained for. When they landed, chaos erupted almost immediately. Zaxxeri forces were waiting, their weapons blazing. Ethan ducked behind cover, firing back as explosions rocked the ground around him. Daniel moved quickly, taking out enemies with precision. Together, they pushed forward, inch by inch, until they reached the outpost's main entrance. Inside, the fighting was even fiercer. Narrow corridors and dim lighting made it hard to see, but Ethan and Daniel pressed on. They knew what was at stake. If they failed, more colonies would suffer the same fate as Delta 7. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the control room. Daniel planted explosives while Ethan kept watch, his heart pounding as Zaxxeri reinforcements closed in. "Done," Daniel shouted, grabbing Ethan's arm. They ran as fast as they could, barely making it outside before the outpost exploded in a fiery blast. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, but they didn't care. For the first time, they had struck a real blow against the Zaxxeri. Back on the ship, Captain Dawson congratulated the team. "Good work," he said, though his expression remained serious. "But this is just the beginning." Ethan looked out the window at the burning wreckage below. He felt a mix of pride and unease. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The attack on Delta 7 left scars that would never heal. For Daniel Carter, every moment was a battle against the memories. He could still hear the screams, see the smoke, and feel the heat of the explosions as if it were happening all over again. His teenage daughter, Lily, barely spoke anymore. Once full of dreams and laughter, she now spent her days staring out the window of their temporary shelter, her sketchbook untouched. The vibrant world she used to draw had been replaced by blank pages. On Earth, the story was different, but no less intense. Ethan Miller sat at the kitchen table, his hands gripping a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Claire stood by the window, watching the protests in the streets below. Crowds chanted for justice, holding up pictures of the victims from Delta 7. "We can't just sit here," Ethan said finally, breaking the silence. "We have to do something." Claire turned to him, her eyes filled with worry. "What can we do? We're just ordinary people." But even as she said it, she knew things couldn't stay the same. Humanity had reached its limit. The Zaxxari Federation's cruelty had awakened something deep within people, a fire that refused to be extinguished. The turning point came when another colony fell. This time, it was Epsilon 9, a research outpost where scientists worked on groundbreaking technologies. The Zaxxari didn't just destroy it. They obliterated it, leaving nothing behind. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just being challenged, it was being tested, and the test was whether they would fight back or crumble under the pressure. President Laura Hayes called an emergency meeting of the United Nations Space Council, UNSC. Leaders from across Earth gathered, their faces grim. After hours of heated debate, they made a decision that would change everything. Humanity would declare war on the Zaxxari Federation. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about survival. If the Zaxxari weren't stopped, no one would be safe. When the announcement came, the world held its breath. President Hayes stood before cameras, her expression firm. "Today we stand united," she declared. "The Zaxxari Federation has shown us who they truly are. They are not just our enemy. They are the enemy of peace, of freedom, and of every species that values life. We will not back down. We will not surrender. Humanity will rise." The response was immediate. Across the galaxy, colonies rallied to support the cause. Young men and women enlisted in droves, eager to protect their homes and loved ones. Factories ramped up production of weapons and ships. Even civilians pitched in, donating supplies and volunteering their skills. Ethan watched as his neighborhood transformed overnight. People who had once lived quiet lives were now preparing for war. For Ethan, the choice was simple. He couldn't stay behind while others risked their lives. He kissed Claire goodbye and joined the newly formed Galactic Liberation Force, GLF, a coalition of humans and allied species determined to take down the Zaxxari. Training was brutal, pushing recruits to their limits, but Ethan pushed harder, driven by the thought of Delta 7 and Epsilon 9. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for everyone who had suffered. Claire, meanwhile, found her own way to help. She began speaking at rallies, urging people to stay strong and united. Her words resonated, inspiring hope in those who felt overwhelmed by fear. She also started organizing supply drives, ensuring that soldiers on the front lines had what they needed to survive. Though she missed Ethan terribly, she knew he was doing something important. So was she. As preparations continued, strange things began happening in the galaxy. Other species, once hesitant to get involved, started reaching out to humanity. The Quarren, an aquatic race known for their intelligence, offered advanced technology. The Varnuk, a warrior species, pledged their strength to the fight. Even the Caliph, reclusive and mysterious, sent emissaries with valuable information about Zaxxari weaknesses. It seemed that humanity's defiance had sparked something bigger, a movement that transcended planets and species. But amidst the unity, doubts lingered. War was never simple, and the cost of victory was impossible to predict. Ethan often lay awake at night, wondering if this path would lead to peace or only more suffering. Still, there was no turning back. Humanity had snapped, and the galaxy would never forget it. The galaxy had grown used to humanity. For centuries, humans were seen as dreamers, explorers who reached for the stars with big ideas, but little power. They built colonies, traded goods, and tried to make friends among alien species. But they were never feared. On Earth, life went on as usual. People worked their jobs, raised families, and worried about everyday things like bills or weather forecasts. Among them were Ethan and Claire Miller, a young couple living in New Chicago. Ethan was a mechanic who fixed hovercars, while Claire taught history at a local school. Their lives were simple, predictable even. They had no idea that everything was about to change. Far away from Earth, on the edge of human-controlled space, trouble was brewing. The Zaxxeri Federation, an alien empire known for its greed and cruelty, had been pushing harder than ever into territories claimed by humanity. Diplomats argued endlessly, trying to avoid conflict. Skirmishes broke out near border planets, leaving both sides angry and suspicious. Still, most people back on Earth paid little attention. To them, it felt distant, something happening far beyond their daily routines. But then came Delta 7. It was a small mining colony, barely noticeable on star maps. Families lived there, working hard to extract valuable minerals from the planet's surface. One of those families belonged to Daniel Carter, a widower raising his teenage daughter, Lily. Daniel worked long hours in the mines, doing whatever he could to give Lily a better life. She dreamed of becoming an artist, filling notebooks with sketches of landscapes and creatures she hoped to see one day. On an ordinary morning, the sky above Delta 7 lit up, not with sunlight, but with fire. Zaxxeri warships descended without warning, firing lasers that tore through buildings and sent explosions rippling across the ground. Panic spread quickly as people ran for cover. Daniel grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her toward the underground shelters, but the path was blocked by falling debris. He shielded her with his body as blasts shook the air around them. When the attack finally stopped, silence fell over what remained of the colony. Smoke filled the air, and the smell of burning metal stung their lungs. Daniel looked around, his heart breaking at the sight of so much destruction. Bodies lay scattered everywhere. Men, women, children, neighbors he'd known for years were gone. Tears streamed down Lily's face as she clung to him, whispering, "Why would they do this?" News of the massacre reached Earth within hours. Images of the ruined colony flooded screens worldwide. Streets filled with protesters holding signs that read, "Enough is enough," and "Protect our colonies." People demanded action, but leaders hesitated. Behind closed doors, debates raged. Some argued for peace talks, others called for retaliation. Meanwhile, Claire sat in her apartment, watching the footage with tears in her eyes. Ethan paced back and forth, fists clenched. He couldn't believe how anyone could be so cruel. Days later, another colony fell victim to Zaxxeri aggression. This time, the United Nations Space Council, UNSC, acted. President Laura Hayes addressed the world, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "We have endured too much," she said. "Today, we declare war against the Zaxxeri Federation. Humanity will not stand idly by while innocents suffer." As the announcement echoed across the globe, Ethan turned to Claire. "This changes everything," he said softly. Little did they know, these words would soon resonate throughout the galaxy.